Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, December 20th, 2023 meeting of the City of Tuscaloosa Zoning Board of Adjustment. It is 5 p.m. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Rob Stewart. I serve as the chairman of the ZBA. I'm going to start to my far left and ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves.
Tim Gillum.
Michelle Coley, Vice Chair.
Linda Ford.
Joseph Eatman.
Mary Catherine Holt.
And I would like to, at this time, recognize the officials from the City of Tuscaloosa who are with us this evening. Mr. Zach Pons, Director of Planning. Ms. Kim King, Associate City Attorney. She stepped out for the moment. And in the back, we have Mr. Kevin Jones, who is responsible for the audio, video, and keeping us on track with time. The Board of Adjustment does not have the authority to enact zoning laws or special exceptions, nor does the board have authority to rule on claims of equal protection of the law or the fairness or unfairness of any zoning ordinance. By virtue of state law and city ordinances, the purpose of the ZBA is as follows: to hear appeals from the decision of the zoning officer of the city, to grant special exceptions to the zoning code in accordance with the terms as established by the City Council, to grant variances from the terms of the zoning code when owing to the special conditions, a literal enforcement of the code would result in unnecessary hardship. No one factor determines what is an unnecessary hardship, but all relevant factors, when taken together, must indicate that the plight of the property in question is unique in that it cannot be put reasonably to a conforming use because of the limitations imposed upon it by reason of its classification in a specified zone. Kind of a working definition we use of unnecessary hardship is as follows: the property cannot be put to any reasonable use under its current zoning classification. It must be a unique and peculiar difficulty relating to the property of a serious and significant nature. It must relate to the property and not personal issues. These include economic, financial gain or loss. A variance may not be granted where the property owner merely suffers a financial loss of a kind that is common to all of the property owners in an area. Circumstances that are not hardships: self-inflicted or self-created, inconvenience, or personal. The Zoning Board of Adjustment, by virtue of state law and City of Tuscaloosa ordinance, does not have the jurisdiction or authority to consider, interpret, and/or enforce any term or condition of subdivision covenants and/or homeowners association rules or regulations. These matters are therefore not relevant areas of inquiry by the board on any petition. Such covenants or regulations are between the private parties involved and not the ZBA. That having been said, any decision made by the ZBA on any particular case does not necessarily preclude the enforcement of such subdivision covenants and/or HOA rules or regulations by other lawful means. This is a public hearing. It is being recorded, videotaped, and is streaming live on the city's website, Facebook, as well as on local cable TV. Proper decorum, civility, and respect for others is required at all times. There are sign-up sheets outside for public comment. 4 speakers are allowed to speak in favor of a petition, and 4 speakers are allowed to speak in opposition of a petition. All speakers will have a maximum of 5 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. When you are at the podium, please speak directly into the microphone and state your name and address for the record. All comments should be directed to the board. No questions or comments are to be directed towards city staff or others in the audience. I would ask city staff to confirm for the record that all of the appropriate and required public and individual property owner notices for each case upon the docket of petitions now before the board have been made in accordance with the law.
It has.
Okay, thank you. The following procedure will be followed for each petition. This hearing is an opportunity for the petitioner to present their case, for the public to inquire and to make their views known about the petition, and for the board members to gather relevant facts before making its decision. City staff will introduce the petition and present facts and information to the board concerning the same. The petitioner or the petitioner's designated representative will be asked to make comments and answer questions from the board. The petitioner will have a maximum of 10 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. The 4 members of the public that are in support of the petition and 4 members of the public that are in opposition to a petition who signed up to speak will then be afforded an opportunity to make inquiries and comments. At the close of public comments, the petitioner will be asked to respond to the comments if necessary. Any rebuttal will be limited to 2 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. The chair may then permit the public to respond, but only to any new issues raised by the petitioner in rebuttal. Any response will be limited to 2 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. At the close of public comment, or once the board is satisfied that it has received all relevant information on a petition, the chairman will close further comment or discussion, and the board will then discuss the matter. The chair will read into the record a motion to approve the request, along with any conditions set by the board, and the board members will commence voting. 4 votes are required to approve any petition, not a simple majority of the board. As you can see in front of us tonight, there are 6 of us here present. 5 of us will be voting. Ms. Holt on the end to my far right is here in case there's a conflict of interest and she needs to hear a case and in turn vote. But again, it takes 4 of the 5 voting members in the affirmative voting yes to pass any petition. If you are a petitioner present, please leave the sign the city has placed in your yard there. They will be by promptly to remove it. Any party aggrieved by any final judgment or decision of such Board of Zoning Adjustment may within 15 days thereafter appeal to the circuit court by filing with such board a written notice of appeal specifying the judgment or decision from which the appeal is taken. The board members have had a chance to review tonight's agenda items. Do any of the board members have a conflict of interest with any of the cases on tonight's agenda?
No.
No. Mr. Pons, are there any changes in tonight's agenda? No? Okay.
All right. How y'all doing tonight? We have one case that has been withdrawn, ZBA 13523. Cases to be heard, we can go through these. The first one here is ZBA 13623. So this is Jaqueline Bryant petitioning for a variance from the residential setback regulations to construct an addition on the property located at 3008 22nd Street, zoned R4, and this is Council District 2. So you can see the location of the property here. And then an aerial, you can see on that left-hand side, or the left-hand side of the property there, that carport slash garage, that's kind of the area that we're talking about tonight. So that existed, and they demolished it and started to rebuild, not knowing that they had to get a permit, but also that it was a little bit too close to the property line. They were going back in the same footprint that existed with the previous garage. And so this came to our attention that way. You can see the applicable regulations here, which we can go a little bit further into in a second. So they are requesting a variance to construct that addition. They demolished the existing carport. Of course, I just kind of went over that, got a stop work order, made aware that they were doing work without a permit. It's about 3.5 feet from the property line. It is considered non-conforming. There are many homes in this area that you guys are familiar with that are non-conforming with these smaller lots. So the minimum lot requirement in the R4 zoning district today is 6,500 square feet with a 65-foot minimum lot width. This lot is approximately 5,700 square feet in area and approximately 50 feet in width, so it does not meet the current standards today. And that's all I've got for y'all, if y'all have any questions for me.
Did they get the permit?
Yeah, so if approved tonight, then we would issue the permit and they would continue to do the work.
Could you go back to the street view? Thank you.
Yeah, there's probably a better one here.
And the stop work order is impacting the construction, it's seized.
That's right, yeah, so essentially they just had to stop the work completely until they would go through the proper channels. They applied for a building permit and it came on our radar where they're actually non-conforming.
And they're basically, from the previous picture which showed it, or I guess from the aerial, that roof line is and footprint are the same.
That's right, yeah, that's, our building inspectors also that have been on site have confirmed that they were going back in the same footprint.
So like, and you noted, in this area, there are many instances that houses predated zoning in early 70s. So the zoning classification, most of what we're looking at does not conform.
Yeah, a lot of them probably are non-conforming. I mean, you can see in this photo, even the adjacent house to the east looks to be closer to the property line than would be allowed today.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, is there a Mr. Simmons in the audience? No, that's not the right one. That's not.
Bryant.
Miss Bryant,
Yeah.
Mr. or Miss Bryant? Yeah, if you could come to the podium, please.
How you doing, boy?
Good evening.
He basically summed it up. I don't know
If-
what to say more.
Mr. Bryant, if you could, just state your name and address and then go ahead.
Well, I'm Willie Brown, and this is Miss Bryant's niece. We are currently want to move in the house, so we was doing some work. She's on a heart monitor thing, and you want her to speak her name?
Yeah, y'all could just, if you would, just please tell us briefly kind of your plan and kind of where you were, what you were attempting to do, and you're here tonight. So just kind of describe what you're doing.
What?
We closed in the carport thing, and basically we just adding on room to the house. It's attached to the house. It's gonna be attached. It's just 4 extra rooms attached to the house.
Okay, and that, as Mr. Pond stated, this fit the same
Yes,
footprint
it's the
and roof
same
line?
exact.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's just closed in the front.
And it was brought to your attention when construction was spotted without a permit, you needed to stop.
Yes.
Yes,
And
sir.
y'all did stop.
Yes,
Yes,
it
sir.
stopped.
And then obviously you're here tonight through this process. If you're granted in your favor, then you can move forward and get, pull the permit and then
Well,
follow along with the
We
building.
paid, actually what happened was when they said that we was too close, we was gonna take it down. And then the guy,
They came out and re-inspected it, said.
yeah,
to do
just
the variance.
come to the board, cause it really don't make sense, cause not that much at first, but we end up paying for the permit take the 1.5 foot off. But when he came out, he just told us said it'll be more trouble to take down.
Yeah, so a lot of times, when our inspectors go out, they're gonna wanna try and work with the property owners and give them various ways to move forward that could be beneficial to them and to the city, so that's kind of what he's mentioning here.
Thank you.
So I have a question, sorry. So this is not a separate apartment, it's going to be attached to the home?
Yes, it's attached to the
Is it
home.
it's a bedroom, bathroom, what is
It's
it?
bedrooms.
Okay. Totally attached, so you'll be able to move from there into the home?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, did you all say you had the foot taken off, or you
No,
didn't?
we didn't.
Okay, you
He
didn't.
said wait.
Okay, I was just kind of confused there, but that's okay. You didn't take it off. Okay, no problem.
Are there any other questions for the Bryants? Did you have anything else for us, Mr. Bryant?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank y'all. Okay, we do not have anyone currently signed up to speak either for or against this petition. Is there anyone in the audience present who would like to come forward and speak, either for or against? Okay. No, in that case, we will close public comment and move to board discussion, starting to my far left with Mr. Gilliam.
I don't see an issue with granting this variance. I mean, there's several non-conforming. They're going back with the same footprint, and it is attached to the house, so I see no issue.
I'm in agreement with my fellow board member. I do see the hardship because of the pre-zoning and the lot size is smaller. So I see the need for them to be able to allow for the setbacks, so I do see the hardship.
Yeah, I agree as well. The fact that the house was built, as most of the homes in this area were built pre-zoning, zoning in effect makes every existing structure non-conforming and wouldn't be able to be built under those guidelines. So based on this and the board's experience across the city, especially in older parts of the city, where neighborhoods and subdivisions were platted that don't fit because of the age of them, many times 50-plus years prior to zoning coming into an existence, we have run into this on remodels and on setback issues. I think it's congruent with other homes in the neighborhood, and I'm comfortable in granting the variance.
I'm also comfortable with this. My concern was it was a separate apartment or not attached to the home, but because it was pre-zoning, I have no problems with this.
I agree with my fellow board members, and I just want to commend you on upgrading the property. I'm sure it'll look great when you get done, so I'm in agreement with my fellow board members.
Okay, if there are no other comments from the board, we'll move to a reading of the petition followed by a vote. In the matter of ZBA-136-23, Jackwell Bryant petitions for a variance from the residential setback regulations to construct an addition on the property located at 3008 22nd Street, zoned R4 in Council District 2, voting with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
your petition passed.
Next up, we have ZBA 13723. Virginia O'Malley is petitioning for a special exception to operate a beauty parlor on the property located at 215 Hargrove Road East, Zone BGO. This is Council District 7. Here's the location of the property. The aerial here off Hargrove Road and on the corner of Arlington Drive and Hargrove Road East. This is the building. So this side here is where her business is going to go. I think on that right-hand door right there is where she's petitioning to go in for her beauty parlor. These are the applicable regulations and the special exception criteria. And so the request tonight is to operate an aesthetic studio. Services offered include various types of facials, permanent makeup. It is attached to a doctor's office on the other side. However, it has its own entrance at the rear of the building, along with the designated parking area for clients. She has stated the hours of operation will be Tuesday through Thursday, 10 to 6, and that they would be the only employee of that business. Any questions for me?
So because it's zone BGO versus BN in this case, it's the use that's not approved by right, but by special exception.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Pons? Thank you.
I believe Ms. O'Malley is here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. O'Malley?
Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing this evening?
Well,
So, of course, my name is Virginia O'Malley, and Virgin Aesthetics will be my aesthetic studio at 215 Hargrove Road East. I'm petitioning for special acceptance on my studio. I've been an esthetician for 5 years. This is something I've been wanting to do at the jump of being an esthetician. I've gotten experience from other medical spas and studios in town, and this is something that I've wanted to open for my clients, an exclusive business where I can offer facials, permanent makeup, and various services, just to create an exclusive environment. It's also attached to the business, as you saw, Tuscaloosa Podiatry. I have Dr. Antero, who is here present with me, who is the owner of that business as well. Yeah, he pretty much summed up the idea and what all I will be providing. As you can see, it does also have its own personal parking spaces where my clients will be able to park and enter privately through the back.
Yeah, looking at an aerial, if you could, Mr. Pons, there appears to be more than enough parking.
Yes.
For the existing business and then what you've described, you being the only proprietor, the only employee.
Yes.
And I'm assuming you're going to have clients come in on appointments only.
Yes, appointment only, and they'll be doing that through my website. Of course, they'll be instructed to get there in a certain amount of time to where they are not crossing paths of other clients. It'll be specifically and exclusively working with them and then kind of flipping them out like that.
And you and your landlord who's here, y'all have worked, I think you did say there's specific spots for your clients to park.
Yes, exactly. If you go back to that prior picture, not the aerial, but the shot of the back, those 4 parking spots where you see that black car, that's where my clients would be parking. And then if there's special need for, say, handicapped client, there is handicap parking closer to the top right there, but they'll be able to access that as well with no problem.
Are there any other questions? The petitioner? No? Okay. Is there anything else for us?
I do have just a menu and pictures of my studio if you guys would like to see it, just for informational purpose. But other than
Yeah, I mean,
that,
you can bring that
okay.
to us.
Cool. I'll keep this.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see the list. Is there anybody on that list? Okay, we don't currently have anyone signed up to speak either for or against this petition. Is there anyone present in the audience who would like to come forward at this time? Okay, we do not have anyone interested, so we are going to close public comment and move to board discussion, starting to my right with Mr. Eatman.
I don't see any problem with it. I mean, they've got ample parking, they're working with the landlord, so I think it'll be a great addition to the business, so I'm in favor.
I'm also in favor, especially since the landlord is here present, obviously, in support of this. My concern originally was a little bit about parking, but since you're going to be by yourself and you'll probably have one, maybe a friend, a company or whatever, I see no need for more parking.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. The reason you're here is because of the zoning, which is BGO. Any other BN, business neighborhood type business, that would be by right. So that's part of this process to vet those. But I think you've met every tenant that we need to consider to grant the special exception. Parking's adequate. It's a medical professional office. I think your service will fit well in the neighborhood and the hours you stated you plan on operating. I'm in favor of granting the petition.
I'm in agreement with my fellow board members, and I'm just concerned about the relationship between the tenant and the landlord. Other than that, I don't see any problems or any issues at all, and I'm just teasing.
I'm in favor as well, and I agree with my fellow board members. I mean, it fits the area, no parking issue, and obviously the landlord's there, so no issue whatsoever.
Okay, if there are no other comments from the board, we'll close board discussion and move to a reading of the petition followed by a vote. In the matter of ZBA-137-23, Virginia O'Malley petitions for a special exception to operate a beauty parlor on the property located at 215 Hargrove Road East, zoned BGO in Council District 7, Voting to my right with Mr. Eatman.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
petition passed. Look.
All right, next up, we have ZBA 13923. This is Adam Tant petitioning for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of the property located at 432 27th Street, zoned R2 in Council District 2. So here's the location of the property, close to Hackberry. And then the short-term rentals within the vicinity, you can see kind of two more up towards Hargrove Road. And the property as it sits today, and the driveway area, you can see some parking area in the rear here. So Mr. Tant is the primary contact. This is what he's stated on his application. In case of emergency, he, along with his company's maintenance phone line, will be available 24 hours a day. He has a vast portfolio of properties that his company manages. The house is equipped with security cameras. It has 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. It is not owner occupied. And they've stated that when the house is not being rented short-term, they'll offer long-term leases that range from 3 to 6 months in duration. Do you have any questions for me? Or I guess they are requesting 8 adults and 6 vehicles. As you guys are familiar, if staff approves, or if you guys approve this, staff would recommend 8 adults and 4 vehicles based on the existing driveway and the off-street parking and occupancy as it relates to parking. Any questions for me?
And Mr. Pons, I believe we had discussed, when you go, if you could go back to a street view. The driveway, and I believe we looked at Google Maps back to the 2010 aerial views, that was an existing gravel driveway at the time. And obviously it looks like it's been re-rocked, so that is, per code, is allowed.
That's right. If there is an existing gravel driveway prior to when the ordinance was written, then they can go back with gravel.
In previous short-term rentals, I know we said we don't want to stack. I know it's a lot in the back. Is there a reason we're recommending 4 and not 2 with the driveway? Would it be in a single driveway?
Yeah, so I think with the single driveway, you could stack 2 tandem there, but then if you pull in further, you could kind of stack 2, or you don't have to stack them. You can park them on the side or within the back area. It's really up to the discretion of y'all and what y'all feel comfortable.
But the recommendation's coming from the office of the city engineer.
Yeah.
Going out and inspecting this.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Tant?
Good evening, Board. I'm Adam Tant with the Tolo Homes. We're petitioning for 432 27th Street.
Mr. Tant, if you could just give us your address, please.
Yeah, the address for our company is 1448 22nd Avenue, Tuscaloosa.
Thank you.
Yeah. So like Mr. Pond said, we're petitioning for 432 27th Street to be able to rent short-term rentals. We're happy to do that within the 30-day time frame that if you guys would allow us to rent for 30 days short-term rentals. The rest of the time frame, we would like to rent long-term leases, 3 to 6 months. Really trying to help anybody that might be impacted by a house that they've sold and they can't move into their new house, or they're waiting for that. Someone that's been impacted by an insurance claim has to move out. So we would provide fully furnished living for them at 432. And then if you guys would allow this, we're happy to comply with the 4 vehicles parking. So I thought that there's room for 6 to get stacked in there, but we're happy to comply with 4 vehicles.
Now, tell us about your experience or your company's experience with short-term rental properties.
Yeah, so we have a short-term rental property in Birmingham, Rhodes Condos in Birmingham. So we operate that short-term rental. At this particular location, we have operated rentals of 3 months or more with individual bedrooms to travel nurses here. So, we're experienced from that regard, from the short-term rental 2 or 3 nights at a time. This will be our first property in Tuscaloosa.
Okay. Your experience at this property with that, what's considered long-term rental, even though it's not a full year lease.
That's right.
Anything over 30 days in the city. You stated you did that here with nurses or different professionals. How has that gone, and what is your responsibility and reaction to issues at this location?
Yeah, so we've got a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week maintenance line to handle any maintenance requests that come up. As far as leasing those, we've typically done that through Furnish Finder to be able to get the nurses, if that answers your question.
So that maintenance line would be any issue related to the property that you as an owner or representative of the owner would need to handle. Is that
Yeah, any sort of emergency issue. I mean, we obviously have them call 911 for fire or burglary or anything like that. But then we've also have them call the maintenance line for any issue. There's also an online maintenance portal where they can put an issue in, and then there's a team that triages that 24/7 through our property management software.
Mr. Tan, is the long-term renter, what's the most number of people you've had in there at one time?
4.
4?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 8 is kind of a lot.
Yeah, so for the short-term rental purposes, I think 2 people per bedroom is what we would put the max occupancy as. A long-term tenant, it would be 4 to 6 people, a family. I mean, obviously, we as a long-term rental, we can't ask how many people are going to be moving into the property because of fair housing laws. So.
What's the square footage of the house, approximately?
Yeah, this house is about 1,800 square foot total, I believe.
Thank you.
No more questions? Okay. Now, back to the short-term rental while you're here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
If this is approved, what have you done in Birmingham, and what do you intend on doing here as far as posted, per the regulation, posted rules and regulations? Do you have those prepared?
Yes, sir, I do. Would you like me to
Yeah, please.
bring them to you?
Now, and I don't know Birmingham's code as far as short-term rentals in the city of Birmingham. Is that where you're located, in the city of Birmingham? The
Well,
short-term rental?
Our office is located here in Tuscaloosa.
No, I'm
but-
sorry, your short-term rental property you referenced.
Yes, that's right. We've got one in the city of Birmingham, and there is no current criteria for the city of Birmingham.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the petitioner? Do you have anything else for us?
No, sir, not on this property.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we do not have anyone signed up to speak either for or against the petition. Is there anyone present in the audience who would like to come forward at this time to speak, either for or against? Okay. No, in that case, we will close the public comment period and move to board discussion, starting on my far left with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes, the petitioner seems to be pretty knowledgeable in real estate and management. There are some in the area. I don't seem to have an issue with this one, but I do with the 8 people based off 1,800 square feet of the house. It seems to be a lot. I'd be more inclined for 6 people.
I agree. Everything else is fine. He seems knowledgeable. Seems like he's prepared to do it. I'm comfortable with 6 and 3. 6 adults and 3 vehicles.
What we do when part of this process and discussion, we vet everything that's in the petition, listen to all the facts or the information provided by the petitioner and/or any comments. Based on the size of home, my fellow board members, I do see that concern. If we do approve this, whatever stipulations and conditions attached to it, it is for a 1-year maximum probationary period. So in this case, I will agree with my two fellow board members for a 30-day, a total number of 30 days in one calendar probationary period with a total of 6 adults and 3 vehicles parked off-street. I'm in favor of granting that based on the evidence the petitioner provided.
I'm also in agreement with 6 adults and 3 vehicles for 1 year. It is a probationary period, and after that year, if there are no complaints or issues with the property, then, we can move forward with more nights and perhaps more adults. We'll see. Thank you.
I agree with my fellow board members. I'm in favor of 6 and 3, again, with the square footage of the house. And I know traditionally we don't like cars stacked, so I feel a lot more comfortable. And I know there's a lot of room for parking, but I feel a lot more comfortable with 3 cars than I do 8 and 4. So I'm in favor of 6 and 3.
There are no other comments from the board. We'll move to a reading of the petition, followed by a vote. In the matter of ZBA-139-23, Adam Tant petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 432 27th Street, zoned R2 in Council District 2, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 6 adults, a maximum of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights in a 1-year probationary period. Voting with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
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 Petition passed.
Next up, we've got ZBA 14023. This also is Mr. Tant. He is petitioning for another special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property at 803 30th Avenue East, zoned RD1, Council District 5. So here is that location on 30th Avenue, the aerial, and then the surrounding area. I don't see any short-term rentals within that general vicinity. Here is the property as it sits today, and then the gravel parking area in the front. So, Mr. Tant, again, it's the same, similar to last petition with the security and the maintenance hotline and all of that. Security cameras are equipped here. This house is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. It is, again, not owner-occupied, and they do intend to long-term lease it when not short-term leasing. They are requesting 6 adults and 4 vehicles. Staff is recommending 2 adults and 1 vehicle based off of the existing parking off-street, existing driveway / off-street parking and occupancy as it relates to that parking. Do you have any questions for me?
Mr. Pons, can you go back to the street view? Okay. And I think there was some discussion earlier, not in this meeting, but looking at the case. The concerns engineering had, I wasn't party to that conversation. Could you elaborate on the parking suggestion?
Essentially, this parking area, again, it's one of those gravel parking lots that existed, so they can continue to use that gravel parking area. But if you can see, it's somewhat small. It's a thin in width lot, and as they are backing, as they're pulling out off of 30th Avenue, whether they back in or pull in, that could be a potential hazard off of 30th Avenue. So I think the petitioner's request versus the 2 vehicles, that's kind of the reason why we're recommending that.
Okay. And also, as you mentioned, it's very limited. This is a narrow right-of-way on this street with no curb and gutter, and
That's
really
right.
no relief from 2 lanes with, 2 average-sized vehicles even. Are there any other questions for Mr. Pons? No. Okay, thank you. Mr. Tant?
Yes, thank you again, Board. Adam Tant, Tullow Homes, 1448 22nd Avenue is our office address. Yes, we're petitioning for 6 occupancies of this residence for short-term rental. That number really was based off of 2 occupants per a bedroom. We're happy to do 4 occupants total. It's a 3-bedroom house, 4 adults. We had originally requested for 3 vehicles at the property, which I believe will fit. I did print an aerial view with the area that I would like to pour a new concrete drive to be able to put vehicles at this property, if I can
You
give
can
this to you.
bring it forward, yes, sir. Now,
I think that,
let me interrupt you. You're not cutting into your time. That doesn't exist today, correct? Is that fair, what
well,
you've shown?
it exists in gravel form today.
Right, but what we're looking at, city staff provided us, that the view from the street, that the photographs the city had taken
Right.
here. But what you're proposing as far as the concrete and widening it and an accepted parking pad, it doesn't exist today.
The concrete does not exist today, that's correct.
And all we can look at is what we know from the city today.
Sure.
And I say that to say, moving forward, if this is approved, then anything that we base our decision on has to exist today, not what may happen.
Okay.
So, whatever decision we make, if it's approved, we can't take that into account. Now,
Sure.
what would happen if it's approved, and when you come back for next year, it's a mandatory to come back to the city, and when you meet with them, that has, if that in fact takes place and has changed, that's a different factor the
Okay.
board could look at, or city administrative staff would look at, just so we're clear on that.
Yes, sir.
And this has happened quite a few times,
Right.
very well intended, but that is not something we can use as a fact today.
Sure, I understand. The footprint of the parking area will remain relatively the same. So what I have outlined is consistent with what is there now. This house has been vacant for a number of years, and we're looking to rehab the inside of it and create better curb appeal on the outside, which is the reason that we're going to do the concrete drive and parking. In one of the photos that Mr. Pons had, you can see the vehicle stacked on the left side of the house. So the gravel does go up the left side of the house. It's just been encroached with grass at the moment. So the parking for 2 vehicles, there is parking for 2 vehicles there in the footprint that exists now, in the gravel footprint that exists now. So the purposes of us pouring the concrete is not to have to deal with the gravel anymore. So it would be consistent with other driveways there on the street.
And I believe I understood through Mr. Pond's comments, part of your application, the information you provided, this is also currently being used for long-term rental, or will be, similar to the first property?
Well, currently this property has been vacant for 4 or 5 years. So,
But I guess are your intentions the same here in the format over a course of a year, like they were in
I'm
the
sorry,
first?
yes, for 30 days, if you guys will allow it, and then the 3 to 6 month long-term rental to people that will need a furnished property during those timeframes. And then also, to manage occupancy limits at these properties, we plan to employ a system called Minute, M-I-N-U-T, that monitors occupancy through noise levels at a home. Is how we'll monitor the occupancy. So, we're happy to comply with that.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Tant? No? Okay. Did you have anything else to offer us?
No, thank you.
Okay. Oh, and one last comment, not to rehash it, but in the first petition that we heard, you're the same entity, company
Same
representing the
entity.
property. So everything you provided us as far as the rules and regulations for in the short-term nature, if approved, would apply the same for this property.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Nope. Okay, we do not have anyone currently signed up to speak for or against. Is there anyone present at this time who would like to come forward now and speak? No? Okay. We will close the public discussion and move to board comments, starting to my far right with Mr. Eatman. your mic.
I'm sorry. Again, I'm struggling with this one because I can't see the hazard with the depth of the drive. And, you know, I've driven 30th Avenue a few times. Know that can be a hazard backing out into that road, as well as the fact, I mean, consistently, I've got a problem with being the first. As long as this board has been around, there's not one in the neighborhood to me. That means it probably doesn't fit the characteristics of the neighborhood, and that's one of our discretionary things we kind of look at. So I'm on the fence about this one. I'm gonna listen to what the rest of my board members have to say before I make my decision, but I'm on the fence with this one.
Well, I have to agree. The safety issue backing in and out is a concern for me, and the number that you requested. It's a very small property. Although I applaud you so much for improving this property, obviously you're doing that. This is a tough one. I'll wait to hear what the other board members say.
Earlier in the presentation for Mr. Pons, you saw that city engineer, and they do this on all of these, they go out to determine what would fit from a safety component. We're concerned with stacking as well. So that is a recommendation from city staff, which we take as the professional staff, members of the city, that they're going out with, again, professionals in the engineering group that are looking at that for the community's best, the neighborhood and the total community's best safety, you know, and impact or minimal impact. In saying that, in this case, you did present a plan. However, as I stated, that's not something today that exists. I'm in favor, in this case, of following city staff's recommendation for 1 car and 2 adults in this house. If this works in a year and you come back, and if you follow through with the plan to increase the parking, and you did say concrete or paving, I think that potentially changes that to maybe go up another car and 2 occupants. But I believe it was a 3-bedroom, 1 bath in the presentation. And just the limitations of the house in that scenario doesn't, to me, warrant more than at a maximum, even with correct, proper parking for a 4-2. So in this case, I'm in favor of granting maximum of 2 adults, 1 vehicle parked off street, probationary year period for a total of 30 nights.
I agree with my fellow board member. I'm in favor of 2 and 1. I think it's the first to go into this area. I think we should proceed with caution and the minimum that we can move with to see how it works and does it fit the character of the neighborhood. Once you make the improvements and upgrades, see how it goes. When you come back, then for your renewal, we can definitely look at increasing the number then at that time, once we see the experience, and as long as there are no issues, then I don't see any reason then to expand. So at this time, I'm in favor of 2 and 1.
I have concerns about the safety aspect as well, and then there's not any short-term rentals in the area, but at the same time, with this one being that the staff's recommendation for 2 and 1, I may be in favor of doing that.
It's normally we've closed public comment. Again, that is up to open it. Come forward, you've got 2 minutes.
As far as the safety concerns with multiple vehicles in the driveway, I can understand that. One of the things that this property does have going for it is right there at one of the speed bumps where people are slowing down, so you can see that. Also, I would say this, that this house is actually a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. So if we were to rent this house out long-term, we could very well potentially have 3 to 4 vehicles in that driveway. So I'm happy to, if you guys will grant it, 2 occupants, 1 vehicle, I'm happy to comply with that and try that out to see how that works for our model, renting short-term for 30 days. If that doesn't work, then we'll rent it out long-term, and then taking your advice, we would try to limit the amount of vehicles. But per the lease, if there's 3 adults in the property, then they all could have a vehicle. We couldn't limit that.
During
family would-
long-term, we don't have anything to do with long-term. We only have jurisdiction over the short-term. So if
Sure.
you do long-term, that's a different situation, and so we don't have any control of that part.
Right. I was just addressing the number of vehicles that would be there or potentially be there long-term as opposed to.
And when somebody lives in
limiting.
a home for a long period of time, they know how to move in and out of their driveway. When you have people that are not there all the time, that's where the danger, and I see it as something could happen. If this is my first time being there, I'm not familiar with the area, me backing out something. But if I live there every day, then you know how to kind of proceed or you need to park. They might back in as opposed to pulling in.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that, and I appreciate y'all's foresight on that. And like I said, we'll be happy to comply with 2 adults and 1 vehicle in the driveway, and we'll see how it works for our business model if that happens. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any other comments from the board on this petition? Okay. In that case, we will close board discussion and move to a reading of the petition, followed by a vote. In the matter of ZBA-140-23, Adam Tant petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 803 30th Avenue East, zoned RD1 in Council District 5, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 2 adults, a maximum of 1 vehicle parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights, and a 1-year probationary period. Voting with Mr. Eatman.
No.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
the petition passed.
All right, next up, we got ZBA 14123. Mr. Adams is petitioning for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 1 Forest Drive. This is zoned R1, Council District 5. Here's the location of the property. The aerial showing the property as it sits today. And then the general vicinity. I do not see any existing short-term rentals within this area. The front of the property, and then you can see the parking and the drive and the side right there. This is an old photo. They have sent in a photo. We had talked with them about the parking and how it is not meeting the zoning ordinance, how it extended past the front facade. And so they fixed that before the meeting, and that was just kind of one of the concerns that we had. But moving forward, I believe that they're meeting the zoning ordinance in that regard, and so we wouldn't have any issues with you guys hearing this case tonight and going forward with that.
So the picture we saw is current.
This picture here, you can see that they had put some sod, I guess, and some straw down right there. They had taken up some of that gravel to meet the ordinance.
So we're good as far as meeting
That's right.
parking encroachment
You're good
to the street.
Correct. And so they are going to have Bama Vacation Rentals as the primary contact. This is Ms. Kim Roberts' company, and then they would be a team member. There would be a team member available 24 hours a day. She is, of course, you guys are familiar with Ms. Roberts. She's come before you guys a lot. This house is equipped with security cameras and 2 keypad locks. It is a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom home. It is not owner occupied, and the home will remain locked and monitored via cameras. It doesn't look like they have intentions of long-term renting this property outside of short-term renting. And for the petition, they're requesting 12 adults, 6 vehicles. Staff is recommending 8 adults, 4 vehicles based off of the parking in the driveway. And one thing to note, just going back to the aerial, well, I guess this works. So on the left-hand side here of this image, you can see there is an accessory structure there on the property. Of course, the zoning regulations relating to short-term rentals specify that that cannot be occupied at any time during a short-term rental period. So just keep that in mind as y'all are discussing with Mr.
If there is someone there in any capacity in that accessory structure in the rear, they would need to vacate when if it was engaged in STR if approved.
That's right, during that short-term rental portion. And Mr. Adams is familiar with that. We've discussed it with him.
Mr. Pons, we received emails in opposition, any in support?
Yes, so we've received 5 emails in opposition for this one, and then we received 1 email in support that had 3 signatures on it from adjacent property owners. So I guess you could take that as 1 or 3, but that was submitted all together in 1 email.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Pons? Okay. Mr. Adams?
Richard Adams, 105 Preserve Circle, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, 35405.
Autumn Adams, same address.
Tell us about your petition and your intentions and kind of what you would like to do moving forward.
Well, yeah, my intentions is the rented and short-term. I'm now doing long-term 30-day rentals with it since I've remodeled the house. I bought it a year ago today, did remodel and closed in the basement, did all that through permitting, Tuscaloosa, jumped through all their upgrading the house, electrical, you name it. With both houses, they're actually different addresses, different power meters. They're just sharing a driveway. And they were rented separately before. So I know that's a concern of most people, but they've always been 2 houses with 2 addresses.
But it's one legal parcel, is that correct?
Yeah, it is.
And that, Mr. Pons, that's the sticking point. They're not 2
Yeah,
separate
that
parcels.
constitutes an accessory structure and a primary structure.
So that, I understand that may have been the
Yeah.
case, but that, in this scenario, is different. Okay.
But, yeah, and our plan is the short-term rent it. Our mother-in-law, her mother actually lives in the house behind it. So she's the one that occupies the house when no one's there. Right now, she still stays there because we're just doing long-term rentals out of the house until we get our short-term rental, which is why the main reason I bought it and upgraded it is to do short-term rentals with it.
Is the mother going to stay in the house during the short-term rental too?
No, she could come stay with us. We're right down the street in Cottondale and 5 Points.
Yeah, we're about 5 minutes away from the property, so.
Yeah, she's at our house now watching our little one. She probably lives there as much as we do.
Tell us about your experience with short-term rentals, if any.
This is my 3rd one. I've had one before that. Now this will be currently would be our 3rd one. I'm working on another one in Northwood Lake. I do this pretty often. I own a heating and cooling company, so I work with Kim Roberts on all her ones that she rents. We go out there and service them. So I have my own, not on top of what she has, I have my own 24-hour service company. So I know all about short terms because I've been doing Kim Roberts stuff for years now, and we decided to get into it about 4 years ago. I've kind of it's kind of my second job, honestly.
And I read your petition, the full packet, and you provided the rules and regulations, which are her companies, because she will, so we're clear, she will be managing the property.
Yes.
You're just paying a management fee, and she's handling all of that.
Yes, we'll turn the houses. She turns most of our houses still. So she normally turns them between each guest. So we get in there to each because most of these houses I normally put a lot of money in to make them nice, so I could do this. So we want them between each guest. We want to make sure we see what's damaged or what's missing and stuff like that. Even though Kim Roberts is the one booking people, the one communicating with people, we're still, visiting the house every week.
Now, in the packet, Mr. Pons, if you'll pull up the aerial, please. It looks like the house or the lot to the north is vacant, the wooded lot, is that right? Or at least
there's all trees all around it, and there's fences on both sides of the property too.
So is the picture we're looking at accurate to what's behind it to the north now? It's wooded. Um,
Yes,
It's a stop
it's a stop sign.
And that 7th Street East, it's a two-way street all the way
Yes.
to the east? Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Adams?
How many short-term rentals did you say you are working with now?
I have 2 that are currently running, and this would be our 3rd. But I'm in the process of remodeling another one in Northport on Northwood.
Out at
Lake
Northwood Lake,
Drive.
yeah. So have you had any problems with your other short-term rentals as far as complaints with the city or with the renters or?
No, not anytime soon.
Not with these properties, we haven't.
No.
Tell us, you referenced you're waiting pending this board's decision to be able to move forward, but you're currently not in your mother-in-law's back property, the back
Yeah.
house, but the front house we're considering. You're doing long-term rental now or not?
I do 30-day rentals right now. Ever since I've done it, I was trying to get my license back, I want to say February,
I think
March.
it was around February.
And the inspections were kind of making me do extra stuff, so I pulled it at the time. And then when it was kind of too late to really get into trying to come here, do that, get into the ball game, so Kim Roberts suggested just doing 30-day rentals with it, and since then, we've had people in there, honestly, every month for that. But obviously, it's more benefit to us to do short-term rentals because of, university. And that's really was our goal with the house.
If you're approved tonight, are you still going to do some version of a long-term 30-day rental?
We don't plan on to, no.
No.
May I ask how many people, when you've had long-term rental, have you had stay in the home at one time?
Most of the time, it's just one vehicle and four adults. They're normally here working for something.
Okay.
And they keep renewing. Ever since we've got them in there, they've kind of never left. But I'm not kicking them out until I have to.
Okay, thank you.
Has there been any issues from their other short-term rentals?
I'm not familiar with any, no. Yeah. I'm not familiar with any, no.
Yeah, I was going to say, Emily did not mention anything about that, and I think she would have said something if we had, because I know she checks that, so I think she would have said something if there had been issues with any of the other ones.
Thank you.
Mr. Adams, the picture in front of you, the aerial, what's shadowed behind the front house, the main house?
Yeah.
Is that where, I think it's a red car maybe back? Is that all parking pad behind the house?
Majority is it towards where the car is. I've kind of put a lean tube there for grilling and stuff like that to enjoy the outside, but the half of the house, that is still 3 or 4 cars could park there.
And tell us again about the house, square footage, bedrooms, baths.
It's got four bathrooms, 4 bedrooms, and it has a full basement, open area with another bathroom and laundry that I end up closing in when I purchased the house. So you could consider that a 5th, but it's really just an open. We just put bunk
and
beds in.
I was gonna say there's sleeping arrangements in
Yeah,
the basement.
yeah.
But that's separate from the 4-bedroom, 4-bath.
Yeah, that's on the main floor. The bottom's kind of just an open area. It's more like a kid's area with a lot of bunk booth,
What's the approximate square footage?
It's around 3,500 square feet.
3,500? Does
Yes.
that include the basement?
Yes.
Yeah, with the basement.
See, are there any other questions for Mr. Adams? No? Okay. Did you have anything else to provide us?
No.
Thank you. Okay, we've got 2 individuals signed up to speak in opposition. We'll start with Mr. Michael Cornwell. Oh, okay, that's fine. How about Miss Anna Schuber?
It's Anna Schuber, and I live at 18 Forest Drive, directly across the street from number 1. First of all, I want to point out this picture is several years old, so you can't really see the actual spot here. Yesterday, I sent you an email to enumerate my issues with this. I do want to talk about several of them today. Number one, the traffic. We are off of University. It is a speed trap through there. They fly off of University and they fly off of 7th. These people that are coming through our neighborhood do not live there. They are going somewhere else or escaping something, mostly the traffic on Crescent Ridge and the traffic on University. That means that this is not an area that you can walk because we don't have any sidewalks. Just the trash issue from people flying through the neighborhood and throwing it out. This morning, I picked up a syringe, someone's Social Security card, and 3 beer bottles in my front yard. That was just from last night. I do this every morning. Also, noise factor. We have to deal with a lot of noise. There's an apartment complex down 34th. They come from that all times of the day with noise to the point where it can vibrate you off the couch or off of your bed. I'm concerned about the fact that this would be an empty house most of the time. We have a lot of walkers through the neighborhood as well. When Moonwinks was there, they came from that. They come from Chateau now. Most of them could be homeless. We don't know. We also have had meth issues. The back house on number 1, that little apartment back there, was a meth house back about 15 years ago. Number 2 was a meth house for 3 years, and finally it got cleaned up in about 2 years ago. This is probably why we have the syringes laying around in the street, which means that I can't let my grandkids out there without supervision. I have worked at the university for 33 years. I love my job at the university. I teach. I don't need to have more university activities in front of my house 30 days out of the year because we know it will be football. I think there should be a sanctuary somewhere in this town where there's not university activity. That house, number 1, has been rented for about 25 years. I've been there 27 years. For about 25 years, it's been single-family homes with children that we've watched grow up. Our neighborhood is a very close-knit neighborhood. We have security cameras because of the thefts in there. We have to keep all of our gates to our backyards locked with padlocks because people will wander in and steal stuff. It's just what we do. So I just don't want more stuff going on. That's what I have to say.
And thank you for coming. But if I could, I was going to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
I was taking notes as quick as I could. You mentioned traffic, trash, noise, transients, meth, issues with some neighboring multifamily properties and a now closed property. Those, and you referenced the drug sales and 15 years ago, back that far. So from what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to misstate what you shared, you've got a lot of serious issues that have been going on for a long time. Is that fair?
Yes, it's very fair.
A lot of those, that's unfortunate, that's happening where you live, and I'm sorry for that. You seemed very engaged. Have you reached out to your councilman who represents your district?
Kip Tyner and I are in contact.
Okay.
And I've called the police many times. Okay. This is a family area. Right. We know each other. We went through the tornado. I lost my house. The house next door went down throughout that. We have stuck together. Things don't happen in our neighborhood that we don't contact each other. I get emails at least once a day, Anna, what's going on up at your end? We heard this. When Moonwinks was there, we were hearing gunshots and all kinds of stuff. That has calmed down now, thank you. But, and I realize, there's a lot of stuff that's just gonna happen. But that, right there, their driveway, number 1, it comes right out to what is a stop sign on the wrong side of the road. The stop sign is on the left side of the road. Nobody stops there, not even the police. I've sat there in my driveway and watched them fly through it. and they don't have lights on, so they're just not paying attention. But it's on the wrong side of the road. That driveway comes right out there. So anytime coming in and out, you're going to have people flying by. Part of the problem with number 1 and number 2 is there's a fence that goes right out to the road. You can't see around it, so it becomes, when you're trying to come around 7th Avenue. There was a young man and a woman 2 years ago living in that back house that had a baby. They like to walk the baby with a perambulator. I had to make sure they walked on the other side of the road so they could see the traffic coming at them, because I was terrified they were going to get blown off the road.
And again, this is unfortunate. You and your neighbors,
Yep.
longtime resident, sounds from what you've said, have to experience this. But now that you've shared that, and it's
Yeah.
years of issues, that are negative issues, how specific to the petitioner, you've got things that have been going on, to your point, for many years. How is, in a regulated environment, what's being proposed going to change or impact the horrible things you've talked about?
Well, the traffic coming in out of that driveway. Number 2, I'm afraid of the house being empty all this time. Empty house looks like a good place for people to hide that are walking through the neighborhood. And we enjoyed having a family there. I would love to have a full-time family there. I would enjoy watching kids grow up. It would be a wonderful event. I'm afraid of the noise. You know, like I said, I deal with students every single day. I get enough of them 5 days a week.
But it sounds like a lot of, I don't want to hold you up anymore. Again,
Yeah.
thank you for coming, but a lot of the problems you're talking about necessarily aren't university kids. Is that fair?
We have university kids living in that neighborhood, and like I said in my email to you yesterday, they have been good neighbors.
Correct, I
We
read
have
that.
learned
They
to
help
talk
you
with
and
them.
offer to mow the yard and all that
People
good
that are
stuff.
coming in for football games are not tied to the area. What is
Okay.
their reason for being
Okay.
quiet?
I'm just trying to frame your scenario of what you shared and
Well,
how
that's-
this would impact you in
Yeah.
a different way.
And living across the street, I'm going to be the one that's going to be right there with it.
Okay.
So what has been the experience with the renters that he's had so far? He says it's been rented for 30 days repeatedly. What has been the experience with who's in there now?
Well, nothing at the moment, but they're not having a football party over there. You know, they haven't done anything at the moment for the last year. They've been working on the house. You know.
I will say to you, if we were to approve it or anything of that nature, most of the time at short-term rentals, they don't have parties at the house because it's against the rules to have a party at a short-term rental. Most of the time, people who rent them out, that's part of their rules, you can't have a party. But if they do, you have 311 at your disposal, and we recommend that you call in and you report it. Reason being, when they come back for renewal, we look at that. Most of the time, we've been doing this for years now, and we don't really have any problems with the short-term rentals. I know it's an unknown, and you can be afraid of, of the unknown and what's going to happen and what could happen. Sometimes in this situation, it seems like this is moving forward, that when you start bringing short-term rentals into this area, it could help, because if he's upgrading the home, fixing the home up, that is upgrading the area. That is being an investment. And when people make an investment into an area, that's an improvement. So just wanted to say that in terms of what's happening now, and I know what's been happening, but Moonwink is gone, so some of that traffic is cut down. So things like that are moving forward. And then again, we need to be discussing that with our councilman of some of those things that need to be corrected. And I know he's on that. I know he's probably working day and night on that. And thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah. My only other comment is, having been here last year to stand in opposition to it last year in January, and seeing all of the short-term rentals around this town really makes me sad. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Mr. Cornwell?
My name is Michael Cornwell. I live at 3304 University Boulevard, which is just off the bottom of the screen here. I spoke to you several times earlier in the year about the proposed short-term rental next door to me. My house is, though not shown, it's less than a block from this house on 8th Street and fronts University Boulevard on the front. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that the petition immediately after this one, 42 is off the bottom of the screen there. A child could throw a baseball from the yard over to that one. So you'd have number 17, Forest Drive, short-term rental, and you'd have number 1, Forest Drive, short-term rental. I noted on the first page of the staff's report, every structure around here, or every area, zone area, is R1. And as the staff indicated, there's no short-term rentals in here. And there's a reason we don't want them. We have a quiet neighborhood. We exchange keys. We know each other. And we don't want to be confronted with game day parties. And that's part of the short-term rental objective. And we know that's going to happen. Forest Drive here, and I've lived there 26 years, and I'm not yet sure where 34th Avenue, coming off University Boulevard, becomes Forest Avenue. But that is a narrow street. You can tell it's narrow up there. School buses come there. And trying to get on University Boulevard, those cars come down from the old Moonwing or Crescent Ridge Road, actually. They slingshot. They do 60 miles an hour. It's difficult getting out there. And to put more vehicles navigating that, especially if people have been enjoying preparing for game day. And I guess I'm on the 5-minute timer.
Mr. Jones?
I didn't know that the other speakers had
2
5
minutes.
minutes.
Timer? There we go.
I want to say one thing about the petition. Ms. Adams is actually the petitioner, but under where experience of the petitioner, Kim Roberts, has indicated that. Another thing about the Kim Roberts being the manager is she indicates that she'll be the on-call person 24/7, and she says in town. Ms. Roberts lives down in Hull, so I want to be sure that somebody that's in emergency that we can contact, especially given the rules that she's made part of this application, and some of them give me pause and some of them I have questions about. For example, and I'm not going to go through all 35 of them, Q at the bottom of the first page there. You must have permission from management to bring in additional pallets, cots, airbeds, or other bedding. Does that mean there are going to be other people coming in there besides the ones that are permitted by if it's a short-term rental?
I'm not taking any of your time, sir, but what we look at and what the city has, if this is approved, we put down the number of people and the corresponding number of vehicles that the city allows that are permitted. Anybody who runs afoul of that and causes any other ordinance, any existing ordinance, just like people who live in your neighborhood, if you were to make too much noise at your home, by chance, I know you probably wouldn't, but if you were, it would apply to someone here. It would apply to all of us who are residents or visitors of the city, first. But secondly, we're approving a certain amount, if this is even approved, total number of adults. Anything that would go above that, they would be in violation. So you understand that?
I understand that.
Okay.
That was my concern. And
That
it
could
also-
address children, if children come,
Well-
because we only do adults. And so if you're bringing in something extra, it could be to accommodate children. And so that might be what they're addressing, that you have to get permission if you want to bring something else in.
Well, there's this at M. If you exceed the number of guests listed on your reservation or exceed the maximum number of people allowed at your reserved house without permission from the management, payment of the required extra fees. That sounds like that's going to be adults and people that are staying there that should be paying, not children. I'm just concerned about that. Also, we do not rent to vacationing students or singles under 25. I want to be sure that these are part of the petition because she's the emergency call number, and if I see these things are being violated, I want to say, well, you got people in there that shouldn't be in there according to your rules. Or you got more people in there according to the zoning board authorization. And I'm still concerned about the house back there. I did talk to the staff, and Ms. Hayes assured me nobody can be in that house if a short-term rental is granted during that time, and if they're living there otherwise, they've got to move out while the short-term rental would be permitted.
Yeah, I believe we asked that of the petitioner, and I believe he answered that.
Yeah. Well, before my time runs out, as
And
a
if you
general-
do have to complain, make sure you call 311 and make the complaint to 311. In addition to Ms. Roberts, make sure you tell 311 if you see any of those things, let the city know so that we can document that and have it on record.
Yeah, and also the business about, I hope this is correct. No alcohol, no parties, no visitors. No drunken behavior occurs anywhere on the property, disturbs other. Quiet time from 10:30 to 8 a.m. So if these, I hope this is enforced. I mean, I hope it's complied with, because I'll be helping compliance if it's not. A general proposition, I know it's beyond the purview and ability of this staff, but there was an interesting article, actually from the New York Times this morning, you may have seen it on the internet. It was entitled, How College Football is So Damaging the Housing Market. And it talked about, actually, Athens, Georgia, and I said, I'm going to read that. It was about short-term rentals. The cost of the rent, price of the people out of being able to rent near the stadium there, buy a home there. And it said, this is not just in Athens, Georgia, Auburn, Tuscaloosa, Gainesville, Oxford. It's everywhere. And it's just destructive to the security, the value of our homes, what we paid for and built there, to live in peace and not have people coming in that have a facility that hosts out-of-town people that are there for a short time in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We don't currently show anyone else signed up to speak either for or against the petition. Again, I'd like to offer to anybody in the audience who wasn't signed up who'd like to come forward and speak. Okay. We don't have anyone signed up, so at this point, no takers are requesting to speak. We will close public comment, and I think I'm going to begin board comments on this one. We've heard a lot, and I appreciate both Mr. Cornwell and Ms. Schuber for coming forward, speaking their time, their emails we've read, and the rest of the emails, both for and against, we received. A lot of the issues, and I'll start in ladies first with the first speaker, with Ms. Schuber, a lot of serious issues that have been ongoing. And again, that's horrific in your neighborhood to experience that. Where you raise your kids, grandkids, and you live. That's horrible, and again, I would implore you to reach back out to the city and again to your council person there who you said you've engaged, because those are rough issues that it sounds like have been going on for years. Where I struggle with a lot of those, they're public streets. We talk about traffic and people speeding and littering and playing their radios too loud and cutting through. Again, that's something you have to articulate to your city staff and council member, because public streets are that. They're public. If I chose to cut through for any reason your neighborhood, I'm not a speeder, try not to speed, especially around homes and children, but if I cut through there, I don't litter. It's a public street, I can do that. I'm sorry you deal with people who run through there doing things they shouldn't do. That one thing you mentioned. But then I asked Ms. Schuber what specific to this ask was going to make those horrible situations worse. We do this all the time, and I know y'all have engaged in opposition to a previous one in the year, previous case off University, but I've heard every permit in the existence that I've been here, unless I've been absent, I've sat here. In saying that, we look at every petition, because the petitioners have a right based on what your city council has passed and amended 4 times, I believe, continued to pass. We scrutinize as much as possible in the ordinance which staff helped craft, city council again passed, when we're tasked to basically look at these, have this public comment, this discussion. We look at this, if we granted 4 cars or 3 cars or 2 cars here, if it's passed, what is the impact of that on a neighborhood? Most homes have at least 2 vehicles, if not more. Just so you know, if this is passed in our short-term regulation that your council passed, even though street parking may be legal here, it's not legal for the short-term rental activity to park on the street. So if I lived in your neighborhood and I wanted to have a party, I could invite 100 guests, 200 guests, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, I don't think there's anything that limits how many people. Is that right?
Yeah, there wouldn't be unless there's a yellow curb.
Okay, so I could have a football party. I could have a family gathering, a reunion. I could have cars parked. Everything I can see on this map, I could have cars bumper to bumper parked there. As long as I didn't break any ordinances with noise or traffic or complaints that are legitimate, that is a legal activity that can happen anywhere in the city, as long as you're not violating parking or even those other issues. That's where I struggle when this is regulated and we don't have a reason to, and the petitioner is going through a process that was laid out and codified, that by doing the strict regulations that this ordinance has, we're making anything worse in this situation. Any party that happens in this town of any sort, and not just college kids, that could put more of a burden on neighbors with noise than what the city council has passed. And because if this doesn't happen, to the petitioner's comment about the prevalence of short-term rentals and other issues in college towns, it was happening anyway. And it's still happening illegally until the city staff and code enforcement stops them. So this is some way for the city to put their arms around this so it's not a burden on neighborhoods. We're all citizens, we're all volunteers, we all live in the city. I live in an R1 subdivision, that was referenced earlier. Most of the homes, there's R4 near me, most of them are R1. In R1, I had a different impression of short-term rentals as a homeowner in this city, but by virtue of sitting on this board, I've seen several hundred petitions come through. I have short-term rentals in my neighborhood and the neighborhood adjacent to me. Within was it Mr. Pond's 500 feet, property owners notified? I've been notified several times. So I had a very vested stake, not financially, that something bad didn't occur near my home, my investment. And I don't know that any of those have been rented other than asking the homeowners, how have you rented this? Or when they came back before this body to get approved, if they chose to go forward. And I would ask them, and I ask most people coming back, what has been your experience? I've heard not a peep. I wouldn't know if it was their family there or vacant, they are home owner occupied or not. I wouldn't have any clue. So in saying all that, I'm sorry I rambled, I don't see a great concern based on the facts and evidence and our collective experience of watching this. Yeah, it could be the first in a given neighborhood. There's gonna be a first in any neighborhood for most things. But this board, your council, the excellent professional city staff have checks and balances in place. Because things can happen, and obviously in your neighborhood, there's a lot of bad stuff happening, and that's unfortunate. It's troubling to hear that. But that has nothing to do with a regulated process. Those are issues that need to be addressed, but I can't see if this is granted in a controlled fashion, this would make anything you mention in your neighborhood worse, making anything more unsafe. I just don't logically see that. I'm in favor of granting the petition. Now, the city staff recommended, could you put that slide up, please, Mr. Pons? Okay, 8 adults, 4 vehicles parked off-street. Based on, it's a half-acre lot, I too believe, with somewhat vacant or wooded area behind it, which helps mitigate some noise on the backside. I'm in favor, and this accessory structure cannot be occupied by anyone at any time if this is approved and rented. I'm in favor based on a 3,500 square foot house with 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, and more than adequate parking off-street, following city's recommendation of 8 adults, 4 vehicles parked off-street, a total of 30 nights in 1 calendar probationary year. And I feel very comfortable in saying that. I will go defer to Mr. Gilliam now with comments.
You know, these short-term rentals are on us, and they're difficult at times to make the right decisions, and hope we do, based off the information we're given. You know, I am a little on the fence on this one with all the opposition, and at the same time, being the first one, but I know I'm not in favor of 12 adults. I would actually feel if it is approved to go more with 6 and 3, but I'd like to also hear what these other staff members say, and I do agree with Mr. Chairman that some of these issues, and I do feel that y'all have to go through those, aren't going to be the cause of a short-term rental. I mean, there are some other, you know, concerns in that area, but, you know, right now, I'm more leaning towards 6 and 3 if we do approve it.
I would say that when it's a first going into a neighborhood, I do understand the size and you do have the capacity. I think when it's the first one, the biggest concern they have is traffic. And so I think to be accommodating to both sides, I'm in favor of 6 and 3. And if it works out, no issues, you come back, then we can look at going higher and doing that. When you get 8 and 4, that looks like a party right there. That gives you the perception of a party because there are 8 adults and 4 vehicles. And if that's the concern that they have, is that it's going to be a party house, that's what happens with that. So I'm in favor of 6 and 3. I also would like to say this, is that, you know, the complaints and the concerns about being a college town and football, well, we're Tuscaloosa, and that's a big part of the economy in Tuscaloosa, these 7 games and 8 games. And so I think that we have to be careful when we criticize it and act as if it's not a big deal. If I make my living through the university, then to come back and complain when people come to town to want to partake of it, I feel like we're not really being fair. I mean, that is an economic engine that, if I'm not mistaken, $250 million, you know, coming into the city. You know, we can't act like if short-term rentals becomes unpopular, that means that something is changing, and that could be another issue for our area. So until now, I mean, we have to be aware that that's what's a part of Tuscaloosa's economy, people wanting to come here and visit because of our college, because of our winning record and what we have going on. And I don't think that we should take that lightly, that this is a part of business and growing, and these are things that we want in our community for people to want to, because when people come and visit, they want to live here afterwards. They decide to buy homes. They want to stay and invest. That's how young people make decisions to come to this school and come to the community. And we're trying to get people to stay, and this is a way for them to sample the community. So I'm in favor of 6 and 3.
I have to thank you again for coming in. I did drive up and down your street a lot. I almost ran that stop sign too. It's hard to see. I agree with you on that, but it's a narrow street. Seemed to be very quiet when I was there. I've been out there 2 or 3 times. I am in favor of 6 and 3, and because City Council did enact this ordinance, and I see no reason to deny someone that hasn't done it in this area, not giving him the privilege to try this. If in a year there are problems or there are complaints or anything has been registered, then we go from there. I know you're probably already on first-name basis with 311. I do encourage you that if there's any problem with trash, noise, no car is allowed to park on the street. When he rents long-term rental, they can park on the street, which looks like it would be a hazard to me, but they could do it if they chose to do that. In short-term rental, they cannot. They are definitely under a more strict application under short-term rental. So I am in favor of 6 and 3.
I've got a 2-part answer. One, I will say a lot of the issues that you did discuss are issues that, you know, TPD needs to address. And I'm definitely sorry you're having to go through that. But on the other hand, I'm a big proponent of consistency. And I do understand at some point, 5 years from now, it might be 100 short-term rentals in that neighborhood. But me personally, And one of our discretionary things that we get is the fact of the characteristic of the neighborhood. And in my mind, if this board's been around for, I don't know, what, 10, 15, 12 years, and there are none in the neighborhood, my personal opinion under discretion is there's a reason there's not one. So again, I'm going to be a no on this one because I don't like, and again, 5 years from now, it might be 100 of them. But me personally, I don't feel comfortable approving the first one. So I'm going to be a no on this one.
Are there any other comments from the board before we vote? Listening to all of my fellow board members, who I appreciate all of their comments, C did recommend 8 and 4, but it sounds like a consensus from most, or majority, it's 6 and 3. And that is part of our discretion within the ordinance. That's a recommendation based on some solid logic and reasoning from professional staff. But I will agree with several of my board members to put some conditions on this, and that would be a maximum in this 1-year period of 6 adults and 3 vehicles. As we say to anyone who's awarded, if you're voted in favor at the end of this vote, you hear your neighbors, you hear concerned homeowners. Please be cognizant, if this passes, of that. Be available, approachable, and monitor that. Because if you choose to go through this, if it's passed, you've got 1 year. And what happens in that year dictates if you ever do this again at this site. All that being said, I will read the petition with conditions, followed by a vote. The matter of ZBA-141-23, Richard Adams petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 1 Forest Drive, zoned R1 in Council District 5, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 6 adults, a maximum of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights in a 1-year probationary period. Voting with Mr. Gilliam.
No.
Yes.
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 No.
The petition failed.
All right, next up we have, this is the last case of the evening, ZBA 14223. Stacy Wilcox is petitioning for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of the property located at 17 Forest Drive, zoned R1, Council District 5. So here's the location of the property, aerial showing the area, and then the vicinity map, very similar to the one you just saw. The house as it sits today, and the driveway area. So Stacy, Denise, and Tyler Wilcox are the primary contacts in case of emergency. This is the petitioner's first experiencing managing a short-term rental, but the house is equipped with security cameras and a keypad lock. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It is owner-occupied. They plan to stay with friends in town while the home is being rented. They are requesting 8 adults, 6 vehicles. Staff is recommending 6 adults and 3 vehicles based off of the parking situation on site. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Mr. Pons? Good. Okay. Thank you.
Stacy Wilcox, 618 Hawthorne North, Brandon, Mississippi.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your petition, what your plans are.
Like I said, we're requesting 8 adults, 6 vehicles. The reason my thought was behind that was with talking with Miss Emily, was if your adults are 19 and older, just like our family, I've got 2 older kids that would fall in that 19 and above range. And so I wasn't thinking of 8, 35 and above. I was just thinking of families that have older kids that would fall into the adult category. The 6 vehicles was because the long driveway, and they would have the long, I think it was 157 feet, basically, 45 yards or more, that had the ability to handle that. And there's fence on the side and some of the parking's in the back, so it wouldn't be obstruction or, I guess, nuisance to neighbors or anything like that. So that's kind of how we came up with that number. My son is here in school, and he will be staying at the house. So he would be the, on-site, except while rented, but he would be here in town, and we're not that far away that we couldn't be here at any point in time. This is our first time doing this. Just like some comments were made earlier, but my wife and I do view this as a place that we would come to retire and thinking about this home as a retirement option. So that's kind of what drew us into this option of saying, okay, our son's here, and, try to accommodate some stuff for him, but also look long-term for us as a family. And our game plan would be, like I said, it's our investment dollars. I would be looking to make sure that what I'm investing in my own money stays, grows. So that's kind of what, our thought process in going down this path was. And I will say, this is our first time. And because it's our first adventure trying to do this, that, I do want to make sure the house is kept up. Everything is in like we have it, if not better. We have done some improvements and fixed the fence, added a fence for privacy and things of that nature. There's some rundown. We've taken those steps to what we think improve the looks, clean up flower bed. I mean, that's just, stuff. But, with us, it's still improving the place that we bought. And that's kind of where we're at.
So again, Mr. Wilcox, it was your first endeavor in short-term rental.
Yes, sir.
Have you had experience with long-term rentals or managing property or serving as a landlord?
I have not. And I have a brother that is in the commercial real estate business that I could lean to ask, for help on some stuff if need be. But we thought about long-term, short-term, and the well-being of the facility. And we thought less wear and tear would be short-term rentals, because I do value what my money's in. And so therefore, that's the reason why we first opted to try to, go the short-term route.
You mentioned your son, Tyler,
Yes, sir.
is a college student here,
Yes, sir.
and he's living here.
Correct.
Okay. And he will move out, I think I heard you say that.
Yes, sir.
If it's approved and it's engaged in short-term rental. And he will be here locally in the community. Is he your point of contact? Or
It would be both of us, like him or us, if it needed, he would be here. To me, he would be the first point of contact. If you couldn't get him because he's here, then, my name would be there as well. So there'd be 2 points of contact, with him being option A since he would be here in town.
And I did read in your application, you did have some rules and regulations.
Yes, sir.
You provided in there.
Yes, sir.
And I don't have those in front of me. I don't have that.
No,
paper.
I'm sorry. I did not bring them. I didn't.
No, and that's fine. Are you stipulations as far as who you're renting to? Some people have age requirements or age limitations.
Our thoughts were, I think we might have put in there, I don't remember, but ideally, we don't want to turn our house into a party place. Again, there's, just short-term rentals don't allow it, and that is in our rules. And we were thinking about 25 and older. And like I said, if, with scrutiny over who we did, because again, we don't want a short-term rental to turn negative to us.
And you stated that several times. It's obviously your property, your investment. That's should be common sense for most people, that you don't let it go to pot over that. Mr. Pons, pull up the aerial, please. Okay, it looks like you've got a vacant lot to the south. Is that still the case, or is there anything built on? I don't know how old this photo is.
There's a house there now.
There's a house there now. Okay. And then you've got that's the old.
I'm assuming that's the apartment complex right there. So there is a house between us.
Between us. Okay. And then south, is this the Chateau property that's been mentioned? Do y'all know? It's multifamily?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And then that's the old Moonwinks, I believe, the back of that property?
And I think there's been equipment back there tearing that up. So I think, whether that's future,
I was just getting a better point of reference there. Okay. Are there any, sir, we'll get to you in a minute. It's okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Wilcox? None? Okay. Did you have anything else for us?
No, sir, not at the moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Looks like we have Mr. Cornwell signed up to speak in opposition. If you could, Mr. Cornwell, so everyone can hear. And just again, I hate to have you do it.
Goes back to my lawyer days.
State your name and address, please.
Yeah. There's been a house there in between him and Chateau for a number of years.
Sorry for the record, to state your name and address, please.
Michael Cornwell, 3304 University Boulevard East.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that Stacy? All right, I saw the names, I knew it was owners, and I knew that Tyler lived there. I guess he's a student, he's gonna live there full-time, except when they have guests if it's granted, and then he'll move out somewhere, I guess, locally. My main concern was the contact person was Stacy or Denise, I guess that's his parents. And I'd rather have somebody like Tyler be the contact person, the emergency contact person, not the two parents in Mississippi.
Yeah, and I believe I understood Mr. Wilcox that Tyler ideally is his primary contact here in town. And he would be a backup. Like anyone, it's good to have a backup, is what I understood him to say.
Yeah, there just wasn't a phone number, I don't.
Sir?
I was looking for the phone number for the.
I'm sure when we get done, if he's approved, he could be, I would assume, be glad to share that with you. So he just stated he would.
Okay. And again, I guess my main concern was we didn't have any, now we've got two short-term rentals, or could have two short-term rentals in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Again, thank you, sir. Okay, we do not have anyone else signed up to speak for or against. I believe we've already heard from the two remaining audience members on this case. So if there's no one else here who'd like to come forward at this time to speak, we will close public comment and move to board discussion, starting with Mr. Gilliam.
And this one's right around the corner from the other one. I believe it was on the fence with that one, so same with this one as well. There's none in the area.
This one seems more straightforward, and even the resident wasn't against this one, so I'm in favor with 6 and 3, as I was with the other one.
Yeah, I'm in favor with staff's recommendation. This driveway seems to be more than adequate to get off of the street and some relief. No parking, street parking, obviously. When we looked at the aerial view of the property, due east was the old Moonwinks, I believe, parcel, which is a buffer. Who knows what may be redeveloped there? That'll have to take its due course. But so you've got a little relief in that angle from any potential noise that comes from this property. Obviously, a house has been built and updated to the south than what we see in this older aerial. That being said, the homeowner, he's new to this based on his comments and statement. To the short-term rental, he seems, from what we can see in his application and what he's told us, he wants an opportunity there. He has invested a lot of money. The house looks to be well-maintained. That being said, I'm in agreement again with following staff's recommendation of 6 vehicles, 6 adults, 3 vehicles parked off-street for 30 nights in 1 calendar year.
I'm also in agreement with staff recommendations.
Again, like I said, I think the biggest way to maintain integrity is to be consistent. And it's, of course, it's nothing against the applicant. Again, like I said, I just struggle when again, when the board's in place for this long, and there not being any in the neighborhood, and again, I know there eventually will be some, but I'm not going to be in favor because I'm going to be consistent with my vote.
Yeah, I appreciate all the comments, but just for a moment of clarity, Mr. Eatman is the newest of this four who's voting tonight. This, because one is not in a given neighborhood, doesn't mean one in that given neighborhood it could be no one has come yet, that first one. And actually, the ordinance, and correct me if I'm off by a year, Mr. Pons, the initial short-term rental ordinance was 2017 or 18? 17, okay, so we've had, approaching, depending on where it fell in the year, I think it was summer-ish when it came in, 6+ years, 6 full years of experience with this. And initially in that 6 years, it was only allowed in the downtown University overlay, this area, and then on the lake lots, because the city owns the lake, so any lot contiguous to the lake, for the most part, had the opportunity. And that was for a year and a half time frame. So coming forward in that 5-6 year period, it slowly opened up to the entire city because a lot of constituents around the city said, hey, why are they afforded an opportunity to rent their home and we're not? So it went back to council and the advice of city staff, they voted on that. So that's 2019-20 timeframe. And then it's been amended, I think, 2 other minor amendments since then. So just for a frame of reference, why something may not be there, there's always a first, but not to change anything in your opinion, I value that. But just for some clarity on how this evolved and where we are today. So, but are there any other comments from the board before we vote?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so the other short-term rentals that we approved, case 139-23 and 140-23, will those short-term rentals appear on the same map that these would? They're in the vicinity. I just didn't know if they would, like.
One is off Hargrove Road, so unless you had a map of the city, you're probably not going to pick that up.
I thought, I'm sorry.
One was.
One
yeah.
of them was.
What about the other one, Mr. Pons? It's also in Council District 5. I just can't recall. No, it was to the east. No, to the west, correct? It was on 30th Avenue.
Yes.
So
It'll been up in the, it'll be on this plat, it would be.
it'll be on this one.
Okay.
So, and that's another thing you don't always see. Some areas you see considerably more. Like
Yeah, it would
I
be on
reference
this.
where I live, and I live in District 3. There's now more than I can remember approving over time, so.
I will also specify this one being different than the other with it being owner occupied. That's a pretty significant difference that we see within short-term rentals, just to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't remember to mention that. Okay. If there are no other comments, questions from the board, I'm going to move to close comment period and move to a reading of the petition followed by a vote. Okay. In the matter of ZBA-142-23, Stacy Wilcox petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 17 Forest Drive, zoned R1 in Council District 5, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 6 adults, a maximum of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights in a 1-year probationary period, voting with Mr. Gilliam.
No.
Yes.
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 No.
The petition failed. All righty. They didn't give us.
That's all we have for y'all tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Pons.